Reflection on advantages and disadvantages and the escape. The reflection on advantages at Sada, disadvantages at the Nawa, and the escape Nitsarana is another method of discerning things as they really are, by emphasizing the acknowledgement of every aspect of a particular object, including its good and bad features. This reflection is directly linked to the practical application of Dhamma teachings and includes a recognition of how important it is to clearly understand a problem and to know one's intended destination before making the effort to solve the problem. Similarly, before abandoning one thing in order to take up another, one must know both things well, leading to the insight that such action is suitable, correct, and done with circumspection. Asada: advantage, merit, good quality, sweetness, gratifying aspect, delicious aspect. Adinawa: disadvantage, fault, defect, drawback, shortcoming, danger, harmful aspect. Nitsarana: escape, way out, state of deliverance, relinquishment, freedom from problems. Inherent completeness, a state of true goodness, independent of merits and defects, free from problems and those things that one has abandoned. There are two important attributes of this form of reflection. 1. To see things according to the truth means that one sees both the good and bad sides, both the merits and harmful aspects of an object. One does not simply see only the good aspects or only the negative aspects. For example, to truly see into the nature of sense desire, karma, one knows both its merits and its harmful aspects. 2. When one wishes to solve a problem or to escape from an undesirable situation, it is not enough to simply know the merits and harm, the advantages and disadvantages of that problematic item or that unsatisfactory situation. One must also see the way out and to see the goal, to see the nature of the goal and how to get there. How is the goal better than those defects, weaknesses, and harmful aspects that one is currently facing? Is it true that by reaching this goal one is no longer dependent on these former advantages and disadvantages? Does this goal, this freedom from problems, truly exist? One should not hastily try and get rid of problems or be too rash in one's practice. For example, although the Buddha clearly understood the many harmful effects and faults of sensuality, until he had seen the way out of sensuality, he did not assert that he would not return to indulge in it. Before my awakening, O monks, when I was still a bodhisattva and not yet enlightened, this thought occurred to me. What is the positive aspect, asada, in the world? What is the deficiency, the nawa, in the world? And what is the escape, nitsarana, from the world? Then I thought, whatever delight and happiness there is dependent on worldly things, that is the positive aspect in the world. That the world is impermanent, pervaded by suffering and subject to change, that is the deficiency in the world. The removal and abandoning of desire and lust for the world, i.e. nibbana, that is the escape from the world. I went in search of the gratification, asada, in the world, O monks. Whatever gratification there is in the world, that I have found, and in how far there is gratification in the world, that I have clearly seen by wisdom. I went in search of the danger, the nawa in the world. Whatever danger there is in the world, that I have found, and in how far there is danger in the world, that I have clearly seen by wisdom. I went in search of an escape from the world. That escape from the world I have found, and in how far there is an escape from the world, that I have clearly seen by wisdom. So long, monks, as I did not fully understand, as they really are, the world's gratification as gratification, its danger as danger, and the escape from the world as escape, for so long I did not claim that I had awakened to the unsurpassed perfect enlightenment. If, monks, there were no gratification in the world, beings would not become attached to the world. But as there is gratification in the world, beings become attached to it. If there were no danger in the world, beings would not become disenchanted with the world. But as there is danger in the world, beings become disenchanted with it. If there were no escape from the world, beings could not escape from the world. But as there is an escape from the world, beings can escape from it. So long, monks, as beings do not fully understand as they really are the world's gratification as gratification, its danger as danger, and the escape from the world as escape, for so long they cannot escape, be released, and be liberated from the world, they cannot dwell with a boundless mind. But when they fully understand as they really are the world's gratification as gratification, its danger as danger, and the escape from the world as escape, then they can escape, be released, and be liberated from the world. They can dwell with a boundless mind. So long, monks, as various ascetics and Brahmins do not fully understand, as they really are, the world's gratification as gratification, its danger as danger, and the escape from the world as escape, for so long they cannot confess to being ascetics among ascetics, to being Brahmins among Brahmins, and they are not yet called those who have realized with supreme wisdom here and now entering upon and abiding in the goal of asceticism or the goal of Brahmanhood. Before my awakening, O monks, when I was still a bodhisattva and not yet enlightened, this thought occurred to me: what is the positive aspect of physical form? What is its deficiency and what is its escape? What is the positive aspect of feeling, perception, volitional formations, consciousness? What is its deficiency and what is its escape? So long, monks, as I did not fully understand, as they really are, the gratification, the danger, and the escape in the case of these five aggregates subject to clinging, I did not claim to have awakened to the unsurpassed perfect enlightenment. Monks, that those ascetics and Brahmins who do not understand as it actually is, the merits as merits, the danger as danger, and the escape as escape in the case of essential pleasure, can either themselves fully understand parinya, sensual pleasure, or instruct another so that he can fully understand sensual pleasures. That is impossible. That those ascetics and Brahmins who understand as it actually is, the merits as merits, the danger as danger, and the escape as escape in the case of sensual pleasures, can either themselves fully understand sensual pleasures or instruct another so that he can fully understand sensual pleasures. That is possible. What monks is the advantage in regard to sensual pleasures? The happiness and delight that arises dependent on these five chords of sensual pleasure are the advantage in regard to sensual pleasures. And what is the danger in regard to sensual pleasures? A mass of suffering visible here and now, a mass of suffering in the life to come. And what is the escape in regard to sensual pleasures? It is the removal of desire and lust, the abandonment of desire and lust for sensual pleasures, i.e. nibbana. This is the escape in regard to sensual pleasures. When a monk considers sensual pleasures, karma, his mind does not leap forward and take satisfaction in them, attach to or become devoted to them. But when he considers renunciation, it does leap forward, takes satisfaction in it, fixes on it, and becomes devoted to it. His mind is well set, well trained, well departed, well liberated, and released from sensual pleasures. Whichever taints and afflictions arise dependent on sensual pleasures, he is freed from these taints and afflictions. He does not feel that kind of feeling. This is called the deliverance from sense desire, kama. So too formerly when I lived the home life, I enjoyed myself, provided and endowed with the five chords of sensual pleasure. On a later occasion, having understood as they actually are the causes, the unsustainability, the merits, the danger, and the escape in regard to sensual pleasures, I abandoned craving for sensual pleasures. I dispelled the fever for sensual pleasures, and I abide without thirst, with a mind inherently at peace. I see other beings who are not free from lust for sensual pleasures being devoured by craving for sensual pleasures, burning with fever for sensual pleasures, indulging in sensual pleasures, and I do not envy them, nor do I delight therein. Why is that? Because I experience delight and happiness apart from sensual pleasures, apart from unwholesome states. I therefore do not envy an inferior happiness. I do not delight in an inferior happiness. See here Mahanama, before my awakening, while I was still only an unenlightened bodhisattva, I too clearly saw, as it actually is with proper wisdom, how sensual pleasures provide little gratification, much suffering and much despair, and how great is the danger in them. But as long as I still did not attain to the rapture and pleasure that is independent of sensual pleasures, apart from unwholesome states, or to a happiness more peaceful than that, I could not assert to being one who will not return to seek out sensual pleasures. But when I clearly saw, as it actually is with proper wisdom, how sensual pleasures provide little gratification, and that I attained to the rapture and pleasure that is free from sensual pleasures, free from unwholesome states, and to a happiness more peaceful than that, I could assert to being one who will not return to seek out sensual pleasures. These passages from the Pali Canon describe this kind of reflection, which can be applied in a general context, even to individual spiritual factors. For example, the Patisambhidamagga describes the advantages and disadvantages of the five spiritual faculties, indriya. In regard to concentration, the absence of restlessness, uddhacca, the absence of agitation due to restlessness, the strength resulting from having a steadfast mind, and the refined states of happiness, sukha vihara dhamma, comprise the advantages asada of concentration. The fact that restlessness and the agitation due to restlessness can return, and that concentration is impermanent, subject to pressure and not self, comprise its disadvantages at the nawa. Generally speaking, in everyday life and practice, people are faced with choices. between those things that are harmful and other things that are meritorious and free from danger. Even in the case of an escape rana, the possible ways out are relative, that is, one chooses the optimum way out in a specific circumstance. In these situations, one should not neglect to use this form of reflection on the advantages, disadvantages, and escape. One should acknowledge the positive aspects of those things or those practices that one is abandoning. And very importantly, one should not overlook the dangers, faults, shortcomings, and opportunities for loss of those things that one chooses to undertake. Reflecting on things in this manner enables one to practice in an optimal and vigilant way. One may be able to retain the positive aspects of those things one has abandoned, and one may be able to avoid or to redeem the negative or faulty aspects of those things one has undertaken. As an example of this form of reflection in the context of formal Dhamma teachings is the Buddha's key teaching referred to as the graduated sermon, Anupabhikata. The Buddha gave this teaching regularly and to a general audience, especially before describing the Four Noble Truths. The graduated sermon outlines a virtuous, charitable, and upright life based on the principles of generosity, dana, and moral conduct, sila. It then describes the abundant happiness and contentment, referred to as a happy or heavenly abiding, saga, that results from living such a virtuous life. From here it describes the drawbacks, deficiencies, dangers, and imperfection of that form of happiness and abundance, referred to here as the disadvantages of sensual pleasure, kama nawa. Finally, it describes the escape along with the benefits of escape, referred to as the benefits of renouncing sensual pleasure, ne kama ni samsa. When the listener saw these benefits, the Buddha concluded by teaching the Four Noble Truths. Reflection on the true and counterfeit value of things. The reflection on the true and counterfeit value of things, or the reflection on using and consuming patisevana, acts to prevent or dispel craving, tanha. It is applied to subdue defilements or to prevent defilements from overwhelming the mind, and it then influences people's subsequent behavior. This form of reflection may be applied often in everyday life because it is connected to the use of the four requisites and to the consumption of material objects. It follows the basic maxim that human beings relate to things because they have needs and believe that these things will satisfy their needs. Whichever things satisfy our needs are considered valuable or useful. The value of things can be classified into two kinds according to the nature of a person's needs and requirements. 1. True value. This refers to the direct value, benefit, or meaning of an object in meeting the requirements for human life. Alternatively, it refers to the way in which people use things in order to address personal issues, aiming for personal well-being or the welfare of others. This true value relies on wisdom for assessment and evaluation. It can even be called the value conforming to wisdom. For example, the true value of food is that it nourishes the body, sustains life, facilitates good health and physical comfort, and provides one with strength to perform one's activities. The true value of a car is that it enables one to travel quickly and supports one in one's work, one's overall way of life, and one's meritorious actions. In choosing a car, one should focus on convenience, safety, stability, endurance, etc. 2. Supplementary or counterfeit value. This refers to the value, benefit, or meaning of an object that people add to it in order to experience sense pleasure, or to boost and reinforce a cherished sense of self. This counterfeit value relies on craving for assessment and evaluation. It can be called the value gratifying craving. For example, a person gives value to food because it is delicious, it adds a sense of fun, it is a mark of luxury, or it helps one to look smart and stylish. Similarly, a person chooses a car because it is a sign of wealth and status. Here one focuses on the car's beauty and brand name distinction. This form of reflection is applied when relating to things in general, when acquiring, consuming, using, and owning things. Here one gives emphasis to understanding the true value of things, recognizing what is of genuine benefit to oneself and others. Besides truly benefiting people's lives, a recognition of the true value of things supports the development of wholesome qualities like mindfulness, and through the application of wisdom, frees people from the enslavement by material things. Moreover, it is accompanied by a sense of appropriateness and moderation. This is in contrast to attaching a counterfeit value on things through craving, which provides little benefit and can even endanger a person's life. It increases such unwholesome qualities as greed, infatuation, jealousy, arrogance, conceit, and false views, and leads to conflict and oppression. For example, a meal costing $3 eaten with discernment may be of more benefit to one's body than a meal costing $50 eaten in order to boost one's self-image or simply for sensual gratification. Here a bhikkhu, reflecting wisely, uses the robe only for protection from cold, for protection from heat, for protection from contact with horseflies, mosquitoes, wind, the sun, and creeping things, and only for the purpose of concealing the private parts. Reflecting wisely, he eats alms food, neither for amusement, nor for intoxication, nor for the sake of boasting and physical attractiveness, but only for the continuance of this body, for the sustenance of life, for warding off hunger leading to distress, and for assisting the holy life, considering. Thus I shall terminate old feelings without arousing new feelings, and I shall be healthy and blameless, and shall live in comfort. Reflecting wisely, he uses the dwelling place only for protection from cold, for protection from heat, for protection from contact with horseflies, mosquitoes, wind, the sun, and creeping things, and only for the purpose of mitigating the perils of climate and for enjoying retreat. Reflecting wisely, he uses the medicinal requisites only for dispelling arisen feelings stemming from illness and for the benefit of being free from afflicting disease. Reflection, rousing wholesome qualities. The wise reflection, rousing wholesome qualities, can also be referred to as reflection, mobilizing virtue, reflection on cultivating virtue or contemplation conducive to a wholesome and beneficial course of thinking. It is used to prevent, reduce, or dispel craving and is thus classified as part of preliminary spiritual practice. It promotes the growth of wholesome qualities and generates mundane right view. The general premise behind this form of reflection is that different people may experience or cognize the same phenomenon in different ways. They may see and think in a different manner, according to the structure of their minds, their accumulated habits and proclivities, i.e. their sankhara, the fashioners or determinants of the mind, or their considerations in that moment. In regard to a single object, one person may look at it and think in wholesome, beneficial, and virtuous ways, while another person may look at it and think in negative, harmful, or unwholesome ways. Similarly, and for the same reasons mentioned above, a single person may experience the same object at different points in time and create different ideas and opinions about it. At one moment he likes it, and the next he does not. This form of reflection plays an important role in generating wholesome thoughts and actions during the time of reflection, and in helping to rectify long-standing negative habits and inclinations, while at the same time creating new alternative wholesome habits. On the contrary, if one lacks this skillful means of reflection, one's thoughts and actions will be influenced by the power of accumulated habits alone, which will in turn be continually reinforced by these thoughts and actions. One simple example of this, which is found in the scriptures, is the reflection on death. If one applies unwise or unskillful attention at yoniso manasikara, unwholesome states will arise. For example, when one thinks of death, one feels depressed, sad, discouraged, or frightened. Or when one thinks of death of an enemy, one feels delight. If one applies wise reflection, on the other hand, wholesome states will arise. One will feel vigilant and inspired. One will strive to perform one's duties, act in beneficial ways, and practice the Dhamma. And one will gain insight into the true nature of conditioned phenomena. As outlined in the scriptures, a skillful reflection on death includes the factors of mindfulness, sati, to be circumspect, to bear in mind those things that need to be engaged with, a sense of urgency, samvega, motivation, and knowledge, jnana, knowledge in line with the truth. Many skillful methods are recommended in regard to reflection on death. There are many passages in the Tipitaka in which the Buddha describes how in the same incident or situation one way of thinking will lead to laziness, while another way will lead to effort. Here is one example. Monks, there are 8 occasions of indolence. Kusita watu, what 8? Here a monk has a job to do. He thinks, I've got this job to do, but it will make me tired. First I will have a rest. So he lies down and does not marshal energy to complete the uncompleted, to accomplish the accomplished, to accomplish the unaccomplished, to realize the unrealized. Or he has done some work and thinks, I've done this work, now I'm tired, I'll have a rest, so he lies down. Or he has to go on a journey and thinks, I have to go on this journey, it will make me tired, first I'll have a rest, so he lies down. Or he has been on a journey and thinks, I've finished this journey, now I'm tired. I'll have a rest, so he lies down. Or he goes an alms round in a village or town and does not get his fill of food, whether coarse or fine, and he thinks, I've gone for alms in a village or town and have not got my fill of food, whether coarse or fine. My body is tired and not fit for work. I'll have a rest, so he lies down. Or he goes on alms round in a village or town and gets his fill of food, either coarse or fine, and he thinks, I've gone for alms in a village or town and have got my fill of food, either coarse or fine. My body is heavy like a load of soaked beans and not fit for work. I'll have a rest, so he lies down. Or he has developed some slight sickness, and he thinks, I've developed some slight sickness. There is a good reason to lie down. I'd better have a rest, so he lies down. Or he is recuperating, having not long recovered from an illness, and he thinks, I am recuperating, having not long recovered from an illness. My body is weak and not fit for work. I'll have a rest, so he lies down. By reflecting in another manner, however, each of these identical situations can lead to the application of effort. The 8 occasions for commencing the making of effort at Rabawatu are as follows. Monks, there are 8 occasions for rousing effort. What 8? Here a monk has a job to do. He thinks, I've got this job to do, but in doing it I won't find it easy to pay attention to the teaching of the Buddhas. So I will stir up sufficient energy to complete the uncompleted, to accomplish the unaccomplished, to realize the unrealized. Or he has finished some work and thinks, well, I did the job, but while doing it, I wasn't able to pay ample attention to the teaching of the Buddhas, so I will stir up sufficient energy. Or he has to go on a journey and thinks, I have to go on this journey, but in doing so, I won't find it easy to pay attention to the teaching of the Buddhas, so I will stir up sufficient energy. Or he has been on a journey and thinks, I finished this journey, but while doing so, I wasn't able to pay ample attention to the teaching of the Buddhas, so I will stir up sufficient energy. Or he goes an alms round in a village or a town and does not get his fill of food, whether coarse or fine, and he thinks, I've gone for alms in a village or a town and have not got my fill of food, whether coarse or fine. My body is light and fit for work, so I will stir up sufficient energy. Or he goes an alms round in a village or a town and gets his fill of food, either coarse or fine, and he thinks, I've gone for alms in a village or a town and have got my fill of food, either coarse or fine. My body is light and fit for work, so I will stir up sufficient energy. Or he has developed some slight sickness, and he thinks, I've developed some slight sickness. It is quite possible that this illness will get worse, so I will stir up sufficient energy. Or he is recuperating, having not long recovered from an illness, and he thinks, I am recuperating, having not long recovered from an illness. It is quite possible that the illness will return, so I will stir up sufficient energy. In the case that negative thoughts arise, the scriptures suggest methods for addressing them, and most of these methods entail the use of reflection, rousing wholesome qualities. For example, in the Vitaka Samthana Sutta, the Buddha describes 5 general principles for or stages for dealing with unwholesome thoughts. In sum, if evil, unwholesome thoughts accompanied by greed, hatred, or delusion arise, one can rectify them in the following ways. 1. To think about or pay attention to manasikara, something else, something wholesome and virtuous. For instance, one thinks about something generating a feeling of loving kindness instead of something that rouses anger. If by doing this the negative thoughts still prevail, 2. To consider the harm of such negative thoughts and how they are unskillful and destructive and lead to suffering if they continue. 3. To conduct one's life by not paying attention to such negative thoughts, similar to how a person who does not want to see something closes his eyes or looks at something else, if they still do not cease. 4. To reflect on the conditioned nature, sankhara, satana, of such thoughts, to hold these thoughts in awareness as objects of study for increasing knowledge rather than considering them as personal problems. One investigates the nature of these thoughts and searches for their root causes, if they still do not disappear. 5. To clamp down on one's teeth and press one's tongue to the roof of one's mouth, making a firm determination to restrain and eliminate these negative thoughts. In some passages, methods are described for addressing specific kinds of unwholesome thoughts. For example, the Buddha suggested the following methods for eliminating malice and resentment. One should develop loving kindness, compassion, and equanimity in regards to that person who is the object of one's resentment. One should simply disregard that person, or one should consider that person in light of the principles of karma, that the person is the owner of his karma, the heir to his karma, born of his karma, related to his karma, abides supported by his karma. Whatever karma he should do, for good or for ill, of that he will be the heir. Similarly, Venerable Sariputta suggested 5 methods for eliminating malice and aversion, which are based on an understanding of the differences between people. Some people, although their physical actions are not impeccable, their speech is well-mannered and disciplined. Some people, although their speech is bad-mannered, their physical actions are impeccable. Some people, although neither their speech nor their physical actions are well-mannered, their mind is still occasionally wholesome and pure. Some people have bad-mannered speech and physical actions, and their minds have no opportunity to be virtuous and pure even temporarily. Some people have impeccable speech and physical actions, and their minds are constantly virtuous and pure. In regard to those people whose physical actions are faulty, but whose speech is well-mannered, one should dispel one's aversion by focusing on their wholesome speech or disregarding their unwholesome physical deeds. This is similar to a monk who keeps the Dhutanga rule of wearing only rag robes. When he finds a discarded rag on the road, he steps on it with his left foot, spreads it out with his right foot, and tears off only those parts which are good and usable. In regard to those people whose speech is faulty, but whose physical actions are well-mannered, one should focus on their wholesome deeds and disregard their unskillful speech. This is similar to a lotus pond completely covered by algae. When a traveler arrives hot, tired, and thirsty, he goes down into the pond, sweeps the algae away with his hands, cups his hands together to scoop up the water, drinks, and goes on his way. In regard to those people whose verbal and physical actions are faulty, but who know occasional moments of goodness and purity, one should disregard their tainted verbal and physical actions. Instead, one should focus on the fact that their minds are occasionally open to goodness. This is similar to a small amount of water contained in a cow's hoof print. A traveller, hot, tired, and thirsty, sees this water and thinks, "There's only a little water in this hoof print. If I scoop it up with my hands or with a bowl, the water will become so cloudy that it may become unpotable. Why don't I kneel down, support myself with my arms, and drink like a cow?" In this way he drinks the water and goes on his way. In regard to those people whose verbal and physical actions are faulty, and furthermore whose minds are not virtuous and even temporarily and pure even temporarily, one should establish oneself in kindness and compassion, thinking of ways to assist them by considering, indeed, let this person abandon such unwholesome actions by body, speech, and mind, and cultivate wholesome actions. May this person not die and be reborn in a state of perdition, misery, ruin, in hell. This is like a sick person afflicted and gravely ill, who is on a long journey. Both the next village ahead and the preceding village behind are far away. He is unable to obtain suitable food, medicine, and nursing care, or to find someone to lead him to a village. Another traveller sees him and responds with kindness and eagerness to help, thinking, may this person obtain suitable food, medicine, and care, find someone to lead him to a village. May this person not end in ruin and destruction here. In regard to those people whose speech and physical actions are impeccable, and whose minds are continually virtuous and pure, one should focus on their constant verbal, physical, and mental purity. Such people are considered worthy of respect in all facets of their lives. Moreover, they engender a joyous and pure mind in those who think of them. This is similar to a beautiful lotus pond with clear and cool water, and with tranquil borders covered with various plants. When a traveller arrives, parched, tired, and thirsty, he goes down into the pond and drinks the water, and then either sits or lies down in the shade of the bordering trees. The Visuddhimagga describes many methods of contemplation for dispelling angry, resentful thoughts. These can be summarized as a series of stages and should be applied as is suitable to a person's individual disposition. 1. To recollect the Buddha's teachings on overcoming anger and on practicing loving kindness, to remind oneself that getting caught up in anger is to fail to follow the teachings of one's teacher, the Buddha. There are numerous teachings by the Buddha on anger. For example, he told the monks that even if one were to be captured by bandits and cut in half with a saw, if one were to harbour malice and hatred towards them, one could not be said to be following the Buddha's teachings. Moreover, an angry person creates self-inflicted harm consistent with the wishes of his enemies. For example, his appearance is wretched, his facial features are cheerless, he sleeps miserably, etc. Furthermore, if someone else is angry and one responds with anger, one is worse than that person. Someone who does not respond to anger with anger is called one who has won an extremely difficult battle and helps both parties, both himself and the other person involved. If by considering in this way one's anger is not dispelled. 2. To think about the other person's good qualities, to reflect only on the person's good attributes. If one does not discern any good qualities in that person, one should establish one's mind in compassion by considering how he will invariably encounter harmful effects from his evil actions. If by considering in this way one's anger is not dispelled. 3. To inform oneself that getting caught up in anger only creates trouble and misery for oneself. The person with whom one is angry is unaware of one's misery and remains unaffected. An angry person thus ends up hurting himself, destroys the good qualities acting as a basis for virtuous conduct, and performs the actions of an ignoble person, Nariya Pugala. If an angry person thinks of harming someone else, regardless of whether he accomplishes this deed or not, he invariably hurts himself first and experiences suffering. If by contemplating in this way one's anger is still not appeased. 4. To reflect in line with the law of karma, that every person is the owner of his or her actions. All people, including oneself, must reap the fruit of their individual actions. If we are caught up in anger, this itself is negative karma, and we will experience the ill effects of this unskillful action. Likewise, if others behave badly, they will receive the effects of these actions. If by thinking in this way one's anger is still not dispelled. 5. To consider the Buddha's goodness, his cultivation of the perfections, parami, to recollect as an ideal the Buddha's act of self-sacrifice, ever since he was a bodhisattva. There are many Jataka stories, for instance, describing how he sacrificed his life for others, even the lives of his enemies, when they acted spitefully towards him. He did not seek revenge, but rather was able to win them over through goodness. One can similarly reflect on other examples of the cultivation by specific individuals of the perfections of renunciation and patience, in order to strengthen one's resolves and establish oneself in virtuous conduct. If by contemplating in this way one's anger is still not appeased. 6. To consider the enormous length of time of the round of rebirth, in reference to which it is taught that it is difficult to find anyone who has not previously been one's mother, father, brother, sister, son, daughter, relative, or companion. Those who have offered support and assistance in the past. One should reflect on how the person with whom one is angry has most likely been one's parent or child in the past. This incident arousing anger is simply a minor event, a single episode in one's long shared history. One should refrain from fostering hatred and harboring thoughts of ill will towards each other. If by contemplating in this way one's anger still remains. 7. To reflect on the blessings of loving kindness, to consider the benefits of kindness. For example, one goes to sleep with joy, one wakes with joy, one does not have nightmares, and one is cherished by others. One should act kindly in order to reap these benefits, if by considering in this way one's anger does not disappear. 8. To distinguish and analyze various elements, dhatu, in order to discern that in the context of getting worked up and angry, one is in fact dealing with conventional phenomena. That is, one simply assumes that this or that person exists as a separate entity. In truth, there is only the convergence of the 32 parts example, hair of the head, hair of the body, nails, teeth and skin, of various elements of the 5 aggregates and of the 12 sense spheres. Whatever one's anger is directed, it has no purchase, no true foundation on which to rest. If by considering in this way one is still not free from anger. 9. To make a physical gesture of offering a gift, to find something to give in order to show one's goodwill, and to exchange gifts with the other person. Giving helps to soften people's hearts. It brings people together, enabling them to speak with one another with kindly words. It is thus an extremely effective instrument for quelling malice. These are simple examples of methods of contemplation classified under the heading of reflection, rousing wholesome qualities. Some of these methods can be used in everyday circumstances, while others are used in relation to specific virtues. The important point here is that by understanding the general principles and methods of this form of reflection, while a person clever and skillful means will be able to devise additional detailed and effective models of this kind of reflection, which are suitable to cultivating specific virtues consistent with and relevant to the ways of thinking of people in their specific time period. One may say that this rousing of wholesome qualities is the most conducive kind of reflection for developing and discovering supplementary methods of practice, as befitting the different kinds of personal dispositions and corresponding to the changing external conditions of time and place. Here it is important to re-emphasize the role of mindfulness, sati, which constantly keeps one's thinking within the domain of wise reflection. Mindfulness prevents one's thinking from erring into unwise reflection and helps pull attention back, re-establishing it in wise reflection. A person who sustains wise reflection thus applies mindfulness continually. It is possible to divide all kinds of wise reflection into 2 categories. Wise reflection used for understanding the truth and wise reflection for cultivating wholesome qualities. The point of divergence between these two exists at the moment of establishing one's thoughts, and mindfulness can play an important role in deciding between these 2 kinds of wise reflection, in a similar way that it chooses wise over unwise reflection. For example, when one cognizes a sense object and mindfulness focuses attention in order to understand its true nature, this corresponds with wise reflection for understanding the truth. If mindfulness focuses on a specific virtue, however, or recollects a wholesome image in the mind, this corresponds with wise reflection for cultivating wholesome qualities. Wise reflection for understanding the truth depends on truth, which exists according to its own nature, and thus this reflection is certain and unified. Wise reflection for cultivating wholesome qualities, however, is a matter connected to mental conceptions within the sphere of volitional formations, sankhara, and it is thus capable of being diversified and taking many shapes.